Hello folks, Craig Stern here with another exciting update on Telepath Tactics. I thought I would talk about modding a bit since a lot of people were asking questions, and when I get questions, I like to give answers. So we are going to talk about how to mod the game. First things first, the place to go when you want to mod the game is, at least in Windows, is Library, Documents, My Games, Telepath Tactics. Pretty straightforward. There are two folders in here that the game will automatically create when you run it for the first time. The first is User Multiplayer Maps. That is pretty easy. I'm not going to go into that just now. Let's instead talk about user campaigns, which I imagine are probably most of what people are going to want to spend their time doing. I could be wrong. But most of the interest so far seems to be on single player. That's cool. Let's talk about how to create our own campaigns, shall we? So first we go into user campaigns and we create a new folder. We will call this one Awesome Sauce. That will be the name of our new campaign. That is the first thing we do. Second thing we do is we go into the Telepath Tactics install directory, go into Data, go into Campaigns. Covet is the name of the default campaign. We are going to select everything, copy it, and we are going to then paste it into our new user campaign, Awesome Sauce. Next, we begin the editing. So you might notice there are a few XML files in here. Every campaign has its own very specific set of stuff that you can either keep the same as in the default campaign, or you can edit. Those are attacks, character classes, character names, item classes, object classes, and persistent dialogue. We will talk about each of these in turn. Also, obviously, there are maps. First thing you want to do when you create a new campaign, go into Maps, select everything except for introduction.xml, and delete it, because those are just maps from the other campaign. Introduction.xml, you want to open in a text editor. This is where we are going to define the introduction to our game. So here you might notice the narration tag. That contains all of the text that we are going to be using in this scrolling text introduction of ours. So let's go ahead and write something. Once upon a time, there was an awesome spearman named, oh, I don't know, Billy Zane. He fought a battle. Cool. So that's our introduction. Totally lame, but whatever. I'm not here to teach you how to write a great introduction. I'm just here to teach you how to mod. So let's go ahead and right here is a tag called New Roster. This is going to tell the game which characters to stick in the player's starting roster. We're going to create a character in just a second called Billy Zane. So let's go ahead and stick him in the roster. You might notice that the first name and the last name are delimited by a /. That is because the game keeps track of first name and last name separately. Why? Why not? So let's go ahead and go back to our maps. We can leave introduction.xml alone for now because now we need to go into character classes and define our characters. So let's go ahead and get rid of all these characters here. We only really need one. I'm going to show you how to make Billy Zane here. So let's go ahead and create his name, Billy Zane. You might notice, folks, there are sort of two groups of characters in character classes, at least in single player. There are the ones up top with this big thing in the middle, and then there are the ones on the bottom. The ones on top are good guys. They have this tag called onLevelUp, which lets you customize their leveling schemes. Bad guys currently do not level up. I haven't made up my mind about whether I'm going to support that or not. If there is enough demand, then I probably will. I think it would be kind of cool to have them sort of level up, if you will, a little bit like in Fire Emblem, where you can define enemies of a particular level and it will sort of automatically generate variations on the same enemy type using its own leveling engine. It would also be kind of a pain to add, so I don't know. I haven't made up my mind, but if there's demand, I'll add it. So moving on. We've defined the name class. This tells the game what graphic to use for the character. So we're going to make him a spearman, which basically tells the game right here, hey, guess what? when you load this character, look for the Spearman sprite type. That's going to tell it all of what all of his sprites are. Class name. This is what the game actually displays as his class in the game. So we're going to also make this Spearman so that it makes sense given the fact that it's going to use Spearman graphics. But we could also put, like, you know, Pikeman or, I don't know, Spearmaster 5000. Let's make him a Spearmaster 5000. Why not? Move. This can be land, it can be flying. Those would be the two big ones. If you want a flying character, put flying here, otherwise leave it at land. Hurt particle. So this is kind of a neat thing. This tells the game what particles to spray out when a character takes damage. Originally, when I was making this, I put blood in there, and I thought it looked kind of gruesome. If you want, you can change it from sparks to blood, but right now it's sparks. Shadow type, you can actually tell the game what shadow graphic you want a character to use. Most humans use a small shadow. Large creatures like the golems use a big shadow. Shadow Y tells the game where to place the shadow. You want it by your character's feet, obviously, so you can adjust it there if necessary. Counter. Billy has a spear, so we're going to make his counter attack a spear attack. On death, none. On death is kind of a fun one. You can actually have an attack automatically go off when a character dies, and you define it there. If we wanted to, we could actually make little Billy explode when he dies. That would be kind of funny. I'm not going to do that, but just FYI, you can do that. You can have characters that just straight up explode when they die. Alright, we're going to have him start off with just one attack, Spear. Actually, you know what, I take that back. Let's also give him Shove, because Shove is a fun attack. You can start a character with up to 8 attacks. We don't have to give him every attack up front, though. As you'll see in just a second, we can actually have him learn attacks as he levels up. So let's go ahead and define his health. He has 32. That's kind of a lot. Let's give him, 26 to start. He starts with 8 psi points. Let's give him 5 to start. Energy. Psi points is the old terminology from previous Telepath games. So he has 5 energy to start. Speed of 5, so he can move 5 spaces a turn. He gets 1 counter attack per turn. That's his counter limit. No dodge. Strength of 7. Perception of 5, meaning he can see 5 spaces in maps with Fog of War. His psi power, let's put that at 0. Psi defense at 0. No pierce resistance. Slash resistance of 10, crush resistance of 20. Let's actually change that. Let's try something a little bit more like a Fire Emblem weapons triangle type setup. So now he has no pierce resistance, but he is resistant to slash attacks and weak to crush attacks. Takes 20% less damage from slashing attacks, and 20% more damage from crushing attacks. No mental resistance, no heat resistance, no cold resistance, no light resistance, no shadow resistance, no poison resistance. He gets an accuracy of 100. That is a character's base accuracy. You can modify that on an attack-by-attack basis. If you want attacks that deal more damage but are less accurate, you can do that. By default, attacks in Telepath Tactics mostly always hit. And that you can toggle if you want in your own campaign. If you want attacks to sometimes miss for no reason, hey, go ahead. Lower the character accuracy. Be my guest. The game supports it. And of course, he starts off at level 1 with no experience points, and he can be pushed. So there we have it. Next, let's talk about on level up. On level up is what tells the game what to do when a character levels up, as you might imagine. First, we put the character's name, and so you'll notice a whole bunch of attributes that look pretty much exactly like what you saw above, right up here. Basically, what these numbers next to them are, imagine a deck of cards. So every time there is a number, that designates a number of cards, if you will, cards with like quotes around it, that the game shuffles into the deck. Whenever a character levels up, the game picks 2 of those quote-unquote cards, and those are the stats that the character levels up in. So Billy has, let's give this like 7. He's really, really likely to get at least 1 improvement to his health every time he levels up, because we just made this a pretty high number. Energy, 3, so kind of likely to gain energy, but not super likely. Counter limit, this is pretty rare, so he might gain an extra counter attack per turn, but it's not super likely. Dodge. a little bit more likely, actually a lot more likely than gaining counter limit, but still not that likely. Um, since he already has accuracy of 100, there's really no reason to give him any accuracy boosts on level up, so we leave this at 0, meaning there is no chance that he will ever gain an improvement to his accuracy. Strength 3, etc., etc. You get the idea. So now let's move on to this here, in the middle. This text sandwiched, if you will, within the on level up tags. What is this? This, folks, is telling the game on what level to give a character new attacks. So right now, Billy gains Feint when he becomes level 2. Pretty cool. On level 3 he gains Shove. We should get rid of that because we already gave him Shove to start with. So he doesn't need that. Level 5 he gains Motivate. That's kind of a cool attack that that you will see in the Covet campaign. It's kind of like the Dancer in Fire Emblem. It lets a character take a second turn. Pretty cool. Level 9 he gains Sprint. Level 12, let's change that. Double Strike is a swordsman attack. Instead, let's give him Impale. Cool, cool. Alright. So that is pretty much it for your characters. Let's save. One other thing. Let's talk about the enemies for just a second. It's almost exactly the same, except as of right now, there's no on level up tag. Also, you will notice, instead of giving these characters names, you can just make generic enemy types. So this is the Bandit Swordsman right here. Every single instance of the Bandit Swordsman will spawn saying Bandit Swordsman as his name. Or her name. You can create dummy character types for cutscenes. That's what Wounded Bandit is here. You can also create unique characters like Garrett the Impaler with an actual name. But otherwise, it's all basically exactly the same. So let's quit out of here. We have our introduction, we have our character classes. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other stuff we can change. This is fun. Item classes basically contains items that your characters can pick up in the game. I'm not going to go through everything here, but suffice it to say that there are a ton of things items can do. There's a lot of flexibility to create new items in the game, or alter existing ones if you want. One thing I'm going to point out is that items have a commonality attribute that does not matter in single player. Doesn't have any effect because there is no random item drop mechanic in single player. The commonality attribute is for multiplayer, which has random item drops, kind of like Super Smash Bros., and the commonality attribute determines exactly, as you might imagine, how common a particular item is, how likely it is to drop in a map. In single player, you basically, when you're creating a map, you place the items by hand. So you can have item sacks just lying around the battlefield to be picked up by the first character to get to it. You can spawn enemies with items in their inventory. Or, if you want, and this is kind of my favorite thing, you can actually stuff items inside of destructible objects. So, like, you can have a battlefield filled with barrels that, if the player gets to them and breaks them open, items will fall out, and they can pick up those items. Pretty sweet, I think. And that's about it for items. Let's move on. Next on the agenda, we have object classes. Objects are almost exactly like characters, only two real differences. First, no name. There's really no reason to name a barrel. We don't need Barry the Barrel hanging around a battlefield. That's just kind of silly. The other thing is move, the move attribute. Destructible objects don't move on their own, for reasons that should be fairly obvious. So instead, the move attribute serves double duty here. Instead of move, it actually tells the game what can move over that object. So here it's flying, which means flying characters can fly over the barrel object. If you have a shoot through move type, that basically means nothing can move through the object, but characters with ranged attacks can shoot through it. Pretty straightforward. If you have walls, they're going to have a move type of none, which means nothing can move through it and nothing can shoot through it. But if you have walls with windows, then you would probably want to use shoot through. That is what all of the default walls with windows have in Telepath Tactics. Pretty straightforward. I guess there's one other thing worth mentioning, and that is that there is no level up scheme for the objects. You're never going to go onto a battlefield and need to fight a level 10 barrel. That's just silly. Okay, moving on. Persistent dialogue. This is one of my favorite things. This is obviously inspired by Fire Emblem. This is basically your set of death monologues for the game. So this is a pretty good introduction to editing dialogue in the game. Basically, you edit dialogue by editing these XML things that are delimited by forward slashes. So the first two things are the trigger. On character death, that tells the game when a character dies, you need to trigger this dialogue. Ignore the -1 ordinarily. For other triggers, sometimes there's like a numerical component. Not for on character death, so we just leave that at -1. Let's go ahead and stick Billy Zane in here. This is going to tell the game that he is the speaker. So his little dialogue box will display Billy Zane because we're putting Billy Zane here. And let's go ahead and give him some fantastic, cheesy death dialogue. No. New line. New line is kind of like a line break. We can stick that in our dialogue and the game will automatically parse it. Let's see. That totally sucked. Weak. We don't have to have this on the end, but if we want, we can stick it in there. This just explains to the player that, hey, guess what? He's not technically dead, he just left with permanent injuries. After we have the character's, text, what is actually spoken, we have two more things that we put in there. These define what happens when the player clicks on the dialog box. If we say new branch, that sends it to whatever dialog branch we define. Here we're going from dialog branch 0 to dialog branch 1. Dialog branch 1 is actually kind of a placeholder that we just have here. We're not even going to bother defining any text. Instead, what we're going to do, after we've defined our placeholder text and our placeholder what happens when the player clicks, we're going to tell the game to kill a character. This is actually part of this is something that's supported in the game, is dialogue scripting. So during character dialogue, you can tell the game to do like a million different things. You can have it kill a character. You can have it spawn a character. You can have characters rotate. You can have characters move around the battlefield. Characters can turn to face each other while they're talking. All that is controlled through dialogue scripting. So here we're telling the game, when you get to this branch of the dialogue tree, kill the character Billy Zane, and then end the conversation immediately without waiting for the player to click on the dialogue screen. So the player will actually never see the dialogue screen for this particular branch. It's just going to kill Billy Zane and then end the conversation immediately. Pretty straightforward. None of these other characters exist in this particular campaign, so we'll get rid of their persistent dialogue. We will save. Pretty cool. If you look within your Telepath Tactics install folder, in the data subfolder, you should see a map editor. At least you will if you have the full game, once you get early access. Assuming, of course, that you're getting early access to the map editor. Anyway, let's go ahead and create a new map. New map. We will make this one pretty small, just 8 by 8 tiles, because this does not need to be a gigantic battle, although the map editor is pretty good for creating gigantic battles as well. We're going to do a tile fill, so let's go into the grass tile set here and fill it up with grass. Pretty easy. I'm going to create a map here real fast using the paint tool. I'm going to speed it up, so watch and enjoy. So folks, you might notice I just placed a couple of objects here. We have access to every destructible object in the game here. Let's go ahead and also put down a bush. And, oh, I don't know. How about... We can actually put down stuff that's totally inappropriate here if we want. So let's just have a table in the middle of the road. Because why not? And let's also put down a candelabra. Who doesn't like candelabras? The answer to that is no one. Everyone likes candelabras. Now, let's go ahead and check our class pool. Let's make sure we are drawing from the characters for our Awesome Sauce campaign. And hey, what do you know? There's Billy Zane. Let's go ahead and, as you can see, he is facing down right now. He belongs to Team 0, which means that he is controlled by the player. He is a good guy, so we're going to place Billy Zane right there. And let's put down someone for him to fight. Oh, I don't know. How about a bandit swordsman? Let's put our bandit swordsman right here. You know what? Actually, I screwed up. Give me just a second. Let's undo that. Let's go ahead and place a bandit swordsman facing up and on Team 1, which means he's an enemy. There we go. Very cool. There's a whole bunch of other features in the map editor, but I'll save that for another day. Instead, let's just save this map. Let's tell the game, hey, guess what? This is a single-player map. Let's name the map Random Road. So we're going to save it in Awesome Sauce, in Maps, right here, Random Road. Now, folks, we have only one thing left to do. That is to go into Maps and make sure that our introduction points to Random Road. So in the next battle attribute, we're going to put Random Road. We're going to save. This tells the game that as soon as the introduction is over, it's going to kick us to the Random Road battle. And let's go ahead and give this a shot, shall we? Campaign. And hey, what do you know? It automatically loads Awesome Sauce into our campaign selection. Pretty cool. Let's give it a start. Once upon a time, there was an awesome spearman named Billy Zane. He fought a battle. And there we have it, folks. There is our battle. Here in the top, we can see Billy Zane, our level 1 Spearmaster 5000. Over here, we can see our Bandit Swordsman hanging out next to the water. Hey, I know. Why don't we push the Bandit Swordsman into the water? That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and do that. And the enemy takes some drowning damage. The enemy is not able to swim out of the water this turn because it takes 2 energy to swim, and this enemy has only 1. Sucks to be him. Let's go ahead and throw a spear at him. Enemy takes more drowning damage and swims out of the water. Well done, Bandit Swordsman. Not going to do you a whole lot of good, though. You're pretty much dead. As you can see, Billy has 10 experience from using his attacks. When he gets to 100, his experience points will reset to 0, and he will become level 2. Sorry, so that's the experience right there, 10 out of 100. There you have it, folks. That pretty much gives you an idea of how you create a new single-player campaign. And I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope you're as excited as I am for all of the really cool campaigns people are going to make for this game. If you enjoyed watching, and if you're impressed by the modding capabilities in Telepath Tactics, which, by the way, I'm going to keep extending. Like, what you've seen here is what is currently in the game in alpha. I'm going to keep working on it and making it so that modders have even more possibilities for really cool stuff as far as creating their own campaigns. But if you like what you've seen here, and you want to have this tool available to you, if you want to be able to create your own single-player campaigns, I strongly urge you to back the campaign, particularly back at $50 or more, which will get you the map editor pretty much right out of the gate. But just in general, thanks for watching, and thanks for taking the time to check out this game, and I hope you will enjoy it when it's released. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.